Well, welcome back to the Communication Mastery Podcast with me, Mark Burlinson. This is where we unleash the power of understanding to build bridges, not boxes, because we understand that communication is the soil in which teamwork grows. And I've got a special treat for you today. My guest is Jen Kavanagh, and we're going to have a great conversation around self-awareness and consistency and healthy coaching and all of that kind of stuff. So Jen, welcome. Glad to have you with us.
Great. Thank you, Mark.
Tell us about you, who you are, what you do, just to give the watchers and the listeners an introduction to you.
Well, I moved here to Myrtle Beach in 2022 and from Pennsylvania. I'm married. I have 4 elderly children.
Elderly children, yeah.
In fact, today's my son's birthday, 26.
Oh, wow.
And then we have 25, 23, and 19. So I worked in corporate America for 10 years in pharmaceutical sales. And then during that time, very unhealthy kind of lifestyle, yo-yo dieter, chronic binge eater, just nothing healthy. And then it took me many years of gaining and losing weight to realize how unhealthy that lifestyle was. So I made the decision many years ago that I was going to change all that. And I finally, after 15 years of struggling, was able to lose 75 pounds. Cool. And I've kept it off now for almost more than 20 years. So I decided I'm not going back to corporate America and I'm going to start my own business. Yeah. So I did that, and I started my business as a personal trainer, and that was wonderful. I loved working with people, helping people. That's sort of my gift, I think, is helping people and relating to people with their struggles, because I wasn't just the skinny fit girl to other people, because I had been over 200 pounds. I had struggled many, many years with my weight, so I was able to help a lot of people. So I did all that with fitness first, and then realized how important nutrition was, because everybody was asking me questions, and you can't outrun your diet. You just can't. So you can work out. Anybody can work out in some way. Find something you love, exercise, whatever it is, and then go home and eat a pizza. And you negate all that. Uh-huh. So that was a big eye-opening for a lot of people. So I got certified in nutrition, focusing on weight loss and long-term health, and then also gut issues, things like that. So I've helped a lot of people over the years. In general, just trying to help you get healthy from both a fitness and a nutrition perspective.
That's wonderful. So you see the synergy here. Jen helps people get fit with health and nutrition. And I help people get fit with communication. And so there's a lot of similarities, and that's why I wanted to have you on the podcast.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that you started out recognizing that you needed to change. So talk to us a little bit about the self-awareness journey that you went through to get from, 200 pounds plus to losing 75 pounds. What did that look like? And was it easy? Was it hard? Did you have other people help you? What was the self-awareness journey that you went on at the start of all of that?
That was hard, and there was a lot of negativity running around in my brain. Talk about communication. Self-communication was bad. I was always beating myself up in one way or the other, mentally or physically. If I binged one day, I would go beat myself up at the gym the next day. So it was a learning curve. It was a huge process of realizing that the quick fix is not the right fix. Mm-hmm. And I have to set a lot of people straight that come to me and say, well, I have a wedding on Thursday and I need to be in a size 4.
And this is Tuesday.
Right. So that doesn't work. So I tried that enough times to finally, it took a long time to realize. And you know what? I remember the day that it really triggered in my brain. It wasn't necessarily myself. It was my neighbor. I was having a conversation with my neighbor who had seen me get on this roller coaster of weight and unhealthy living. And she looked at me and said, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" And I had my stretchy, flowy pants on, trying to hide what, the last 30 or 40 pounds I had gained. And she said, "I've seen you do this over and over and over again. When are you going to change? When are you going to finally take that step to make this a permanent, healthy living discovery?" And so it really, it was me starting to realize what didn't work, and then her putting that trigger in my brain saying, you got to stop, you got to do something different. And so that's what triggered it, really. I remember that day so well. And then it was baby steps from there, just kind of changing, small changes, one thing at a time.
Wow. I love how you've put together several components that we so often talk about on the podcast. The first is to recognize that you need it, but also then to have somebody on the outside to say, and I often like to say we can't see what we can't see.
Oh, absolutely.
and that's obviously what happened there. But I love that you immediately added after that it's baby steps, because this is not a once and done, fixed overnight kind of deal. Whether it's health and fitness or whether it's communication, we're constantly learning, we're constantly improving, or we're going backwards.
Yeah, exactly.
and so I want to follow up on that and think about the whole thought of consistency. What have you learned from that? That it was baby steps.
Yeah.
Talk to us about consistency and how that makes a difference.
Oh, that's almost the difference between winning and losing the battle. I found people can be consistent for 4 days.
Okay.
And then they fall off the wagon. So especially when you're trying to make drastic changes in anything you do in life, if you try to make such a drastic change, it's going to be very short-lived. For many things. So bread, confession, is my favorite food. Like I would rather have toast than cake or candy or cookies or whatever. And I would restrict because everybody said bread was bad, carbs are bad, so I wouldn't eat bread. And weeks would go by and then I would go buy a loaf and eat the entire loaf. So it's little things. So I started making small changes. So an analogy I learned years and years ago, and I can't even remember where I learned this, but it's like ruts in the road, right, in your brain. So have you ever left your driveway and gone out for a drive and you just turn the same direction you always turn, but it's not the way you needed to go that day?
You've been watching me.
See, it happens. And because you have ingrained that process in your brain. So changing something that is so well ingrained over 20 years or many, many years is very hard to change. So you have that consistency is what changes that one rut into a new rut, like repetitive, and doing little things. It's much easier to be consistent getting up and adding a glass of water to your day as opposed to getting up, getting a glass of water, working out for an hour and a half or whatever, and then eating all green vegetables and lean protein. And you can't do it all at once. And then you just throw your hands up and say, forget it. This is too hard.
Right.
So the consistency is that key factor in changing your brain. And that's the only way for long-term success. Because, I could tell you how to lose a lot of weight in a short amount of time, but you're going to gain it back. All these people that do these crazy fad diets, it's not consistent. And it's not something slow, steady, and sustainable are the three keys to long-term lifestyle behavior changes. And that's the only way to get that success.
And exactly the same applies to communication skill, which is great. I love that because there's so many parallels between what you're doing to help people have a healthy body and all that goes with that, all the gains you get from that, because you've got to make one change at a time. You've got to do it step by step. And I love that you used the analogy of baby steps. I don't know if you've seen the movie What About Bob? But I love that analogy that you have to do what's achievable and keep doing it, and then you suddenly realize down the line, wow, this really is working.
Yeah.
Whereas when you do something that looks like it's working quickly, it exhausts you and you fall off the wagon, like you said, and you put on pounds or you go back to your only preferred communication style and suddenly realize that you're actually alienating everybody again.
It's what else too is that negative talk that I mentioned earlier that I had for so long is associated with failure. But if you have little wins along the way, it's all positive reinforcement. If you remember to get up and have your glass of water, if you remember to choose something healthier over not, if you remember to go and work out and it becomes a pattern, those are all wins. So you're building yourself up, that whole positivity aspect of it, as opposed to the negative punishment, like I'm going to beat myself up in the gym because I had cake last night. It's a whole different thing, and it changes your mindset slowly in a much more positive way.
I love that. And you're zeroing in on that whole thing of how we talk to ourselves, because so often that is the key that unlocks the communication code for us as well. Because I need to disentangle what I'm saying to myself before I actually relate to somebody else, because otherwise what's going on in here comes out of here and causes all the trouble. So let me ask you this, because there's got to be conversation you're having with yourself as you're helping other people to make choices or to see changes or to take that first baby step. So what are some of the things that you're thinking through as you're trying to help? Because not everybody's the same. So you can't just have your standard script of drink a glass of water and that's the first step. It's got to be different for different ones. So talk to us a little bit about your adaptability as you connect with different people and help them with that consistency.
Yeah, that's huge. I always tell people I do an initial free consultation to talk to people because it's so important to find out where they're at.
Right.
And not just where they're at, but where they want to go. Because sometimes people want to lose a ton of weight, but it's not always about that. Sometimes it's about feeling better, maybe. It's just, I know this weight, but also I have gut issues or I have migraines and I just want to feel better. So that's the whole first step, is really figuring out where they are and where they want to go and why they want to get there. Because that is the motivator. That's what keeps you on track or pulls you back on track when you get off track. You have to remember why you started this whole journey in the first place. So that's huge. And then the whole baby step concept, I always tell people, I'm going to meet you where you are. If you've never set foot in a gym, I'm not going to send you out to sign up for CrossFit.
Yeah.
It's not going to work. You're going to fail.
Instant failure.
I want to set you up for success. So if I have had athletes come to me, but they can't get their nutrition right. So they're not making the gains they wanted. So I know I don't have to send them to the gym. I know they got that part nailed.
Right.
So then it's figuring out the nutrition piece, and everybody's different. And I really, as I go with people, check in with them. Like, if I'm telling you something you already know, tell me, and I'll move forward faster. Cool. So it's that constant process of checking in, and everybody's different. So I try to figure out where they are so I know where I need to be in their journey to try to guide them sort of along that path. So it's a little bit of give and take.
I love that. And you told us earlier about how there was that journey from I need to change to I can do this through fitness to now I also need to add nutrition. Along that journey, have you been able to move from why am I telling anybody else what to do because of where I was at to now that I've got all this background, this experience, now I can help other people because of where I've got to? How has your own self-talk shifted in that journey?
It's changed a lot. However, it wasn't easy. It wasn't an easy change.
Right.
I mean, it's like that little green monster that I keep beating down because it does sneak up. Like I admittedly sort of have a little bit of fear in the back of my brain. You can't go back to where you were doing what you're doing. And because I did that so many times. So I really had to kind of fight that along the way. Right. And really figure out how to help people. And in helping them, it helped me.
That's huge, isn't it?
It is. It really is huge. And it's work. Like you can't just shut that negative voice off. Right. And it does threaten to pop up sometimes. And I slip up. Like some people think that I'm perfect and I go out to dinner and people are like, I need to order a salad because Jen's here. No, you don't. Do what you do, whatever you want to do. I mean, I eat a lot of different foods and I am not perfect. Did I eat Halloween candy? Yes.
Yep.
So do I drink a glass of wine every now? Yes. Like I am not perfect. I'm not perfect. But the difference now is I do that and I move on and I don't send myself into this downward spiral where it's that negative in my brain. And so I try to help other people with that by pointing out to them their successes. Like sometimes, like my neighbor did with me, they don't see, it's not just about the number on the scale. There's other things. Like, look what you can do. You couldn't do a sit-up when you came to me. Now you can.
Right.
Look at the difference in your confidence. It's not just about the number on the scale or how your clothes fit. There's so many other little small wins that if you celebrate along the way and reinforce that positive success, it helps train your brain to turn off that negativity when it pops up.
Right. And you've zeroed in on the power of having somebody independent affirming and verifying the progress you're making.
That's coaching, right?
It's what
That's what you
coaching's
do.
all
That's
about.
what we do
Exactly.
every
It's
day.
what we do. It's why we do what we do.
Yeah.
Because we see the gain that people can make when somebody who doesn't have a dog in the fight is saying, you're doing great, or look what you got right, or see how you won. Whether it's in the way they communicate with people at work or at home or in the community or in their fitness journey. I know that my wife and I have both been on a fitness journey, and neither of us can see the progress we're making enough to just do it on our own. But having external input has been so
Absolutely.
valuable.
Yeah.
To affirm that journey that you're on.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's great strength in the community as well, provided it's people who are speaking from a place of what they know.
Yeah.
And you of course have got the journey yourself to say, I'm living proof that I know what I'm talking about.
Right. You can do this.
Exactly. No, I love that. That's great. So when you've got somebody who's struggling to get to that place of positivity, to get to that place of confidence, what are some ways that you help them along the way? I mean, obviously, not every client or every person you interact with is going to be a success story consistently, because none of us is perfect. And I don't know what's imperfect about having a glass of wine or a piece of chocolate, because I had both last night. But
It's all good.
But when you're helping somebody to get from a place of I can't do this and I'm hopeless to look what you did do, what are some of the things that you draw on? What do you look for? How do you make those connections with the people that you're coaching?
Well, it's different with everybody, but the main key, I think, to answer your question, is to find. So being on the outside looking in, they can't see all of their successes. They can't see the small wins. And having the experience that I have, they might not think to look in other places. Like, for instance, your scale's not changing, but did you do measurements? And wow, look what happened. You lost 3 inches in the last month or whatever. Yeah. So it's finding, it's kind of helping them find their wins, because you can't, well, maybe some people can, but it's hard to win at everything, right? It just is. So they may be struggling on 1 or 2 areas, but then if I say to them, well, did you think about this? Then they realize that, oh, I have done really well at that. How many times did you get to the gym this week? 4. Wow. Have you weren't going 4 times to the gym a month ago, whatever. But they get into that negative thing. Yeah, but I can't lift heavy. I can't do this. I can't do very long. I can only do 25 minutes or whatever. Yes, but think about where you were a month ago.
It's 25 minutes more than you did a month ago. Yeah, right.
So it's kind of, I think that external perspective that a coach offers is the person who can find the smaller wins when they're suffering or struggling in some other area. And I also am there from a support perspective, not to let them give up on that area either. And sometimes you need to backtrack a little and say, okay, well, if this isn't working, let's approach this from another angle, and we can maybe get the same success by doing this a different way. So that's another piece of coaching.
Yeah. So I love that you really underscored all of the values of having somebody to coach you. And I don't know about you, I didn't ask you this ahead of time, but I'm assuming you've got folks who coach you to be a better coach. I know I have coaches that coach me to be a better coach, because it's that input from somebody on the outside that helps us improve, and they've got the expertise to know, like you said, okay, this piece isn't working, let's try something different, or here's a different tool. We do the same with communication coaching. I've got various advanced tools that I can bring out if somebody's not finding that the routine stuff is working for them, or they can't figure out how to resolve a particular relationship or a particular situation. And having that person who knows what they're talking about and has walked the path and walked the journey already is so valuable, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I encourage people to track their journey. So, if you journal about where you were and where you are now, you can always look back and see your success so clearly. And because it all comes out in the journaling, like some of it's mental, some of it's physical, whatever. But if you go back and see what you were writing about 6 months ago or 12 months ago, it's like that aha moment, right? Their eyes open and they remember, oh my gosh, that's where I was. I may not be where I wanted to be yet, but look how far I've come. And that's such great reinforcement.
Yeah, because that gives you the energy to climb the next hill, doesn't it?
Yeah,
I remember
absolutely.
back in my youth, I used to do a lot of hiking in the mountains and the hills back in the UK. And one of the best things you could do when you thought you were never going to reach the summit was to turn back and see how high you'd come and
Yes.
just get your breath. And
As long
then
as you
you're
don't
like,
have
wow.
vertigo.
As long as, yeah, well, that's why I don't do it so much anymore.
I can look up, but looking down, not so much.
Yeah, no, I'm not so good at looking down anymore either. But let me pick up on that a little bit, because obviously you've overcome some really big challenges in the health and fitness and nutrition realms. Have you seen that spill over into how you approach other challenges in life?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, there's so many connections. I mean, life throws you curveballs often, and it's in your response. You may not be able to control what's coming at you, but you can control your response to it. Mm-hmm. And I learned that too throughout all of the challenges in my health and fitness, that you, like I said, you control how you respond to those things and how I learned, so 2023 was a really rough year for me. We got so many things hit us, and it questioned my faith. It really did. Like, I just wasn't sure where to go when I was just hit from all sides with one thing after another. And what helped me, and I still do this today, a year and a half later, is focusing on the gratitude in all of it. Mm-hmm. And finding little things along the way to be grateful for. Right. I never did that 20 years ago. It was more of a poor me. I can't. I'm a failure, whatever. And then it's amazing how now, when you feel like you're maybe not succeeding at anything in life, finding the small things to be grateful for kind of gives you a whole new perspective and a strength to go on and to keep pushing towards your goals. Yeah. That's been a huge realization for me over the years.
Cool. And I love how that chimes directly in with what you said about what you do with clients, to say, okay, maybe the scale hasn't changed, but look at your measurements. Or maybe the weight's not working, but you went to the gym 4 times, which you never did before. Yeah. Those kinds of things to help people see those gains and to see that step forward is so helpful. But then when we do it with ourselves, the self-talk changes as well, doesn't it? And,
absolutely.
And just for the sake of the folks who are listening, every one of the 7 communication styles has a way to be able to find those gains. It's different with each of the languages, but each language has its own unique ways that you can find those gains, and therefore you can map your progress in communication just as you can with health and fitness. So that's beautiful. And what about, I know you love to travel, and obviously that is something that's so much easier when you're healthy and fit.
Oh, 100%.
But tell me some of the things that you've maybe learned or gained by going to other nations and other settings that you wouldn't have done if you hadn't traveled.
Oh, wow. There's a lot. I do love to travel. We just booked our next trip that I'm super excited about. Cool. And I'll go anywhere. So, okay. But everywhere you go, you can learn different things. I love immersing myself in different cultures. Right. And really getting to talk with the people and see how they run their daily lives, right? So you can see a lot of differences in especially some of the smaller third world countries we've been to. And there's so much to be learned by just talking to people. So I've learned a lot from just talking to people, especially how, again, going back to gratitude, how grateful I am to be where I am and to have what I have and to have the opportunities that we have. And again, it's just passing that on to my clients and friends and everybody around you is look what we have, the opportunities we have that other places don't. I mean, that's been really eye-opening in seeing some of these, how people live in other countries. And not feeling like, oh, poor me. It's, oh, wow, look what I have and where I am.
I love that. And again, it reinforces a communication principle we talk about a great deal, which is that when we can learn to connect with people who are different from us, we can learn from them, but we turn differences into strengths because of that gratitude principle that you're talking about. And so I think that's so vital that we widen our perspective and learn from people who are different. There's so much in the culture today that causes us to want to focus in just on the people who are like me. And actually, you and I both know that getting outside of that is a great strength for us. Mm-hmm. And I love that kind of virtuous circle you described there, where you're grateful for what you have, but you also love to go to other places where people are different so that you can learn and see, and you gain greater perspective from all of that.
That's what I was just going to say. That's a key word. It's perspective.
Right.
I read a really great book about perspective, and it's, I think it was The Traveler's Gift. And he sends you back in time, to 7 different places in time because he's having a life problem, and he learns from these amazing people over the years, and it's changes his whole perspective on his issues. Because sometimes you can get stuck in that, oh, poor me, I'm a failure, I can't do this, and what's wrong with me? I've been in that place in my head many times. Mm-hmm. But if you change the perspective, look at it from someone looking in or from someone in a different culture or community or country, the perspective that's what we do. We provide that perspective too as a coach. Yes. That you can't always see it yourself. You sort of need somebody else to point out the good things.
Totally. And then that person can help you with each baby step that brings you back to the consistency. So we've kind of come full circle, haven't we?
Yep.
So you change your perspective, grow the consistency. And it's so counterintuitive from the way that most people would tell us to do stuff, because everything's aimed these days at intensity rather than consistency. You've got to really throw yourself at this so that you can beat it kind of approach. But actually that doesn't work, does it?
Yeah, it doesn't always work. It's another thing I read that I found really interesting was we have a very goal-oriented, it's everybody says, set a goal. What's your goal? I want to be 128 pounds. Okay. Or I want to lift 150 pounds or whatever. We're very sort of a goal-oriented culture. That's what people say the first thing when you have something you want to achieve, set a goal. And I read something that said, don't do that. Don't set a goal. Because what does that mean? When you get to the goal, you're done. We're never done.
Yeah.
It's
or when you don't get to the goal, you're a failure.
Right. So it's the process, falling in love with the process and changing those little things along the way will ultimately get you to your goal, but it's an ongoing journey. It's not, you're never there, right? So it's that continuous improvement.
That reminds me of, I think it was Simon Sinek did a little video thing on the whole idea of consistency or intensity, the goal setting and that sort of stuff. And he said it's not going to the dentist every 6 months that keeps your teeth healthy. It's brushing them every morning and every evening.
Yes.
The daily consistency that makes all the difference. And that was such an eye-opener to me because it's what I find myself doing so often, helping people with communication. It's just that little, remembering to do the same thing again, or remembering to adapt in the same way to the same setting and that kind of stuff, that consistency, which you highlighted in the health and fitness zone as well.
And if you flip that around a little bit too, I tell people, because people say to me, oh, I messed up. I had dessert or whatever. But it's not what you do 10% of the time that creates the change. It's what you do the other 80 or 90% of the time. And I tell people, live your life that way. Cut yourself some slack.
Yes.
It's okay to have a little bit of cake or almost anything you want. Yeah. I don't like that everything in moderation, because there are some things that aren't really great for you. But it's seriously that 80 to 90%, that consistency of what you do that amount of time, that's going to lead to your long-term sustainability and change versus what you do. So what? You had a piece of cake. Don't throw the day away and then go have ice cream with it and then get the chips and the cookies out. Eat your cake, move on. You're good. Probably nothing happened from that.
So Jen, this has been wonderful, and I love the overlap that we see between the areas you focus on and the areas I focus on, because actually we all need help in all of those areas, don't we?
For sure.
And,
Yes.
and the beautiful thing is that there's people who can help. And I know from my own healthy journey, people like you have really helped me to get to where I've got to. But I love that we've covered the same ground, because actually it comes down to the same principles, doesn't it? That we embrace the consistency, that we change the self-talk, that we bring in outsiders to help us.
Yeah.
But out of all that we've talked about, is there anything else you'd love our listeners to hear that you feel we haven't touched on yet?
I would say the one little thing is don't ever give up, and it's never too late to start, because there were so many times that I felt like giving up. And if I had, who knows where I would be now. It took me a very long time, and eventually I got it figured out. And then look what that led to, helping hundreds and hundreds of other people. So don't ever give up, and don't even tell me that you're too old to start now, because you're not. It doesn't matter where you're at in life, in age, in physical or mental, whatever. It's never too late to get started, one step at a time.
That is fantastic advice. Thank you so much. And if the listeners want to make contact with you and find out more about you, where can they find you?
You can find me at, my website is now eatplantsloseweight.com.
I love that. Eatplantsloseweight.com.
Yeah. I tried to shift away from just weight loss, but trying to teach people more about being healthy in the long run. So that is my website, and you can find me there. You can find my contact information there.
That's great. Well, Jen, thank you so much. This has been great fun. Appreciate you being with us.
I appreciate you having me on. Thanks for everything, Mark.
Thanks a lot. And we'll see you next week.